next video. I don't even count them anymore because we're probably going to lose count because there's so much weird little trivialities we have to go through. But this is the next video in our series of Daewoo rifle parts. DRP TV, DRP Internet, DRP YouTube, whatever you want to call it. These are exotic, odd, rare rifles with an exotic, odd, rare following. Most of the DRP people I've met are a little off-center, like me. So, without further ado, let's go to the overview of the K2 pre-ban Pre-89 import versus the post-1990 import DR200. Let's start from the muzzle. I have replaced the muzzle device on this one with a Yankee Hill interface, but this is what came on it. It's a 3-slot long flash hider. The threads underneath are half 28 threads. They are occluded on the DR200 by a silver soldered in place fake cone flash hider. The threads underneath are 25mm long, or just about an inch, so you can't just unthread these and then just thread on whatever. You have to actually have to either use the replica of this, the U.S. made replica that we sell on Daewoo rifle parts, which counts as a U.S. part towards 922R compliance, or you have to use a jam nut, or in some cases a jam nut and a crush washer to put AR type stuff on there. We do sell the jam nuts separately. When we sell the flash hiders, they come with a jam nut because that is how they indexed them in those days. This flash hider, as it came on this factory Pre-89 imported rifle, was typically the ones you see from the factory. The webs between the slots are oriented at the left and the center. That web is oriented to TDC, or top dead center. I can only assume that's to provide some kind of rudimentary compensative effect on the muzzle rise. I don't know for sure. I've installed them with a middle slot straight up. I've installed them that way. I don't see much of a difference at all, but that's the way they typically come from the factory, or most of the ones that I've seen that are unmolested from the factory come. As you know, this type of rifle, along with its direct impingement cousin, the K1, were imported from about 1981 to 1989 when they were halted from import by Daddy Bush's executive actions. No Congress necessary. I'll probably say that a few more times in this video series because when a president acts like a dictator, it just kind of offends me. This was imported by Firearms Import-Export Company out of Sacramento, California. And it says IACO, SACTO, CA on the side. A lot of them do. Most of them say that. The postban ones were imported by one of 3 importers. Kimber out of Clackamas, Oregon. Steyer, Secaucus, New Jersey, or Stoger out of Secaucus, New Jersey, and B West out of Tucson, Arizona, and they will be all reflected on this side of the receiver in the same font. The K2s, mostly, were imported by Firearms Import-Export Company. What you'll notice, production assistant Dan, if you will feast your eyes here, this is obviously looks like it was cut with a mill and then reconfigured. At this time, when this rifle was brought in, certain states were just starting to ban firearms by name, and so if they changed the model number or changed the configuration, well, suddenly that firearm wasn't banned anymore. This is one of the beginning of the high water marks or high tide marks for leftist, un-American, and unconstitutional gun control in this country. It started like all bad things. It started over in the People's Republic of bullshit California, and true to their delusional self-image and worldview, they still seem to think that somehow they are the movers, shakers, and trendsetters of the world, which, thank God, at least here in free America, Arizona, they are not. So that was the change that was made to change the nomenclature of the rifle. This particular rifle is a 1-in-7 gun. One of the differences that most people don't talk about, and even fewer even know, is that a lot of these guns were imported with 1 in 7.3 barrels. Now, why 1 in 7.3? Because the Korean machinery wouldn't rifle them to a straight inch, so they had to go the next nearest millimeter, and that happens to come out at 1.7.2, 1 in 7.2, or 1 in 7.3 twist. Now, the reason they did that was because in the 80s, just like the U.S. military, we went from the M196 round to the M855 round, which is 62 grain penetrator, which has been in the news recently because the ATF has tried to arbitrarily ban them. Once again, another agency acting without constitutional or congressional authority to do so. So an interesting footnote to the Daewoo, the entire Daewoo series, is that you will find these rifles, Pre-89 rifles with the folding stocks, you will find them in 1 in 12 barrels and 1 in 7 barrels, 1 in 7.2 barrels, 1 in 7.3 barrels. You will also find the collapsible stock direct impingement K1 in a 1 in 7 or a 1 in 7.2 or a 1 in 12 barrel. You really have to look, and it's typically will say on the top of the barrel somewhere whether it's 1 in 7 or 1 in 12. But I know at a certain point they didn't mark them. This particular one is not marked. So how do you tell? Well, you just look down the bore. It's pretty easy to tell the difference between a 1 in 7 and a 1 in 12 barrel. It's a lot harder to discern a 1 in 8 or a 1 in 9 from a 1 in 12 or a 7 or vice versa. So let's move back. I apologize for digressing, but let's move back to the differences between the pre-ban and the post-ban. The Pre-89, and I'm talking about the 1989 import ban, George H.W. Bush import ban. In order to get the guns back in the country, they had to remove the bayonet lug, because of course there were just a rash of drive-by bayonettings in the 80s and 90s. I can't remember a time turning on the TV where I didn't see one. And they also, of course, did away with the flash hider and included the threads with the silver solder. So other than that, the uppers remain unchanged. The lowers, however, are completely and utterly different. You'll see that the lower, that the pre-ban lower, has a knuckle built right into it. I'll remove this so we can actually get a better view of that. It has a knuckle actually machined into this to form the front hinge, the front knuckle part of the folding stock. The Daewoo folding stock is generally regarded as one of the most solid, rock solid and reliable folding stocks ever put on a rifle. I mean, even the Aero 180 doesn't even come close, because the Aero 180 uses springs, plungers, and sheet metal. It locks into sheet metal. This is more like an FAL. It's almost a dead nuts ripoff of the FAL, except that the FAL has this block actually bolts onto a modified lower. So you see this is very tight when folded. You have to fold it down. Those of you who just force them open, I'd like to butt stroke you. That's not how you do it. And then you see it's very solidly engaged and doesn't move. It's got a little rattle in it because it's just a military gun, and that's actually the upper and lower fitment rattling, not necessarily the stock. But it's a hollow plastic stock. It's not quite resin like the pistol grip, but it's not hand-laid fiberglass like the handguards. Handguards are fiberglass with heat shields pinned into them. Now, some of the characteristic qualities of the Daewoo rifle are as follows. It is very AK-like in that it uses a gas system that is like an AK. It has a long spring on a telescopic rod, which telescopes back and telescopes forward. It has a little lock on the end, where if you need to take the spring unit apart, you can take it apart. Earlier Daewoo rifles, K1s and K2s, do not have this little flipper here. This little flipper is designed to keep you from inadvertently pushing the assembly forward and unlocking it out of the hole in the lower receiver where this piece interfaces to lock the upper to the lower. In the past, we have sold new recoil sets for the K1, and they did indeed have this flipper. Apparently it's been an upgrade that's been introduced across the board as Daewoo Precision Industries gave way to S&T Daewoo, which is now S&T Motive. That's the company that makes the Daewoo rifles. Daewoo Precision Industries went out of business in 2003 after getting caught buying elections and rigging elections and doing all the typical big corporate stuff that big corporations like to do. So they are no longer around. So all these guns are a bygone era, and the company actually doesn't exist in that form anymore. So the fixed charging handle, some people don't like a fixed charging handle. I like a fixed charging handle from the sole standpoint of, I've never used a forward assist in my life, but if you need one, there it is. You just give it a fist bump or a palm strike. It is a simple cast handle with an overmolded resin knob. These tend to be pretty fragile. Rifles fall on the ground and they end up breaking. This, and we'll have another video later to show early K2s and late K2s. This is the standard K2 DR200. So this is the product improved gas system that was that evolved from the earlier types. The earlier types, as we will show in another video, are roll pinned together, and they use a cut cam pin. You'll notice there's a lot of AR type influence in this design. It's a 7 lug, 15-degree lockup. So when it goes into battery, it just goes like that. It doesn't have any gas rings on it. When you take the thing apart, it doesn't. We'll do full field strip in another video, complete teardown. But it doesn't have any gas rings on it. The upper, all the parts in this upper will fit in this upper and function flawlessly. There's an earlier type, the roll pin type, that the upper internals, the bolts and carriers, are actually not interchangeable. The bolts are, the carriers and the gas piston and gas piston extension, for some reason, are not. So we will go over that in a different video. So you can see, I will pull apart the DR200, and you will see that it's the exact same internally, albeit different lowers. As we showed you in the other video, the selector is different because it swings the wrong way. Because they redesigned the lower receiver to fit that god-awful thumbhole stock. But that is what is generally considered the gas system type on the Daewoo. There are a different set, and we will show you that in a different video. So if you have a later type K2, you might want to think about picking up a DR200 if you find a good enough deal on one, provided you have this type of gas system, if for nothing else than to serve as a reserve parts platform in case you break your existing rifle. Now the headspace on a DR200 is very much like an AR. It is in or it is out. There is no, it's not like an FAL where you can adjust the headspace or put a different locking shoulder in it or anything like that. It is what it is. Almost all the DR200 rifles I've ever put a headspace gauge on will close on a 223 no-go. Despite the fact that they are listed as 223, they will close on a no-go. They typically won't close on a field. If you have one that closes on a field, it's not safe. Don't shoot it. Call us and we'll let you know what you can do. We might be able to fix it. That's what a bone stock DR200 looks like inside. Another question, another issue while I'm putting this AR100 K2 back together. We had some statements earlier about the barrel twist. An oddity regarding DR200s, a lot of people don't know or don't want to know, or I'll tell you right now. Every single DR200 imported into the country, every single one, unless it's been reworked by me or Moses, or not the Moses, but there's a gunsmith called Moses. Unless it's been reworked and rebarreled by somebody, is a 1 in 12 twist. You're like, well, how does that work? Why would they import rifles with a 1 in 12 twist barrel when they had been importing them with 1 in 7.2 or 7.3 twist barrels for several years? Well, I'll tell you why. When in 1989 or 1990, when the new importers went to work trying to get Form 6s approved to import what would become the DR200, they still had warehouses full of barrels, perfectly good barrels. Because in the mid-80s they changed the M855 round. They no longer needed 1 in 12 barrels, so all the barrels that they had made to back up logistically their issued rifles or rifles in the field, they no longer needed. They didn't throw them away. They used them on the roughly 20,000 guns that came in the country. The Daewoo series, be it the pre-ban or post-ban, share some weird little oddities with the AR-15 family of rifles. And I don't know if I'll be able to show you on this one. I might have to get the pre-ban one out here again. For one thing, they have a nifty little winter trigger. Not only do they have an AR type bolt, they all take AR type mags, and they have a FAL type gas adjusting system, which we'll touch on before we wrap this video up. But they all have a winter trigger, and a winter trigger is designed just like an M16 winter trigger before they started putting the finger groove grip on it to block the use of the winter trigger, to be pushed in with a cartridge. So you push this in, and then you fold this down, and you can use the weapon with a set of mittens on. And if any of you have ever served alongside the Rock, or have you ever been to the Rock, you know that it gets pretty damn cold in Korea. And so something like that, other than the Swiss, they're one of the few countries I've seen who make sure they have winter trigger apparatuses on all their small arms, because If you can't use your small arm in the cold, that pretty much puts you out of commission for half the year in Korea. One more thing before we wrap this video up. Another product improvement that, I don't know if it's a product improvement that they made, but another product improvement that they made, or at least I'm sure they called it that, was on the gas plug. The Daewoo rifle, the gas adjusts pretty simple. It's not like a FAL where you have a threaded gas tube or a threaded gas block. You have a nut and a bunch of numbers on it or any of that bullshit. You have, what you can see here is small, medium, large, and off. SMLO. And as the name implies, or as the symbology suggests, the gas ports correspond with that letter when faced closest to the arrow. You see the little arrow there. Let me grab my little pointer here.
I believe you meant symbolism.
Symbolism. What's the symbolism? You're very funny. These symbols on the gas plug correspond to that arrow. So you see they had to make it idiot-proof on the DR200s. They have a great big yellow arrow on the preferred setting, which is medium. You also notice that the gas plugs are in fact different. The DR200 gas plug is much easier to get to, and this type of gas plug has been introduced all through Korea on all their gas piston guns. It's got a longer plunger. It's somewhat checkered on the end, and it sticks out quite a bit. Unlike the plunger on the Pre-89 gun, or the plug on the Pre-89 gun. Let me see if I can get it out of here without having to get a screwdriver and pry it out. One of the reasons why we developed the extended gas plug, which I will show you guys in a different video, is simply because of this. It's very hard to get out once it's all carboned up, and sometimes you have to get a screwdriver and pry it out. And we have extended gas plugs available sometimes. Right now we don't, but sometimes we have them available on DaewooRifleParts.com to alleviate that issue. So you see the gas plugs, while they look similar, are not exactly the same. They are, however, interchangeable. So this is how they would go in. You have your three gas ports. They're both the same. Apertures are exactly the same. Your small, medium, large. When you want to run a suppressor, of course, you turn the thing around to small, and it gives you a lot less gas eye. So you end up with a lot less gas in your face if you're using the small setting on any Daewoo with the gas plug. One further note, and I want you guys to look at this, and I want you guys to remember this. Unlike an FAL and an L1A1, the lugs that retain the gas plug in the gas block are the exact same size. A FAL and L1A1, they have a different size notch, a different sized tongue tab on each side. They're just 10-20 thousandths off. So it only goes in one way and it only comes out one way. I've sold dozens of replacement gas plugs because you guys were not paying attention. Well, not you particularly watching this video, but you know what I mean. We're not paying attention, put it in, or somebody who didn't know what they were doing put it in. And then even though it was carboned up and they didn't think it was going to come out, or they couldn't get it out, the plug launched downrange like a really large super caliber riot control device. Most places are not like Arizona, and they're not the desert, so if you're shooting out in the woods or weeds, they tended to get lost and be gone forever. So right now I don't have any replacement gas plugs. I might have some made in the future. So keep that in mind, boys and girls. You do not want to lose that gas plug. It's not a good thing. So we'll wrap that one up. Thank you for watching. Our next video is going to be overviews, differences of DR200 versus DR300, the very rare 7.62x39 gun, which we just got so lucky to have one that's intact right now. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe.
Over these hills we go.